Hello again. For anyone who's just joined us, welcome to Workstream 3, which is about supporting FE students with additional needs. So if you think you might be in the wrong workstream, please do feel free to go back to the booklet. But thank you all for coming along to this workstream. I'm sure we're going to have an excellent session this afternoon. My name is Steph and I am the Study Hire Liaison Manager for Swindon and Oxfordshire. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm just going to introduce the speakers very briefly before they get started. So our first speaker this afternoon is going to be Emma from Aspire Higher, who will talk about supporting ESOL students at FE colleges, followed by Zoe, who is here from the University of Lincoln, to talk about transitioning students effectively, a student-led approach to mental health support. So I won't waste any more time. With no further ado, I'll pass over to Emma first and foremost.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Steph, and lovely to see everyone today. So I'll just share my presentation. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Emma Semi and I work on the Aspire Higher project at the University of Bedfordshire as part of the Uni Connect programme alongside the University of Northampton and also University of Hertfordshire. So today I'm going to look at supporting ESOL students at FE colleges and go through what I've been doing for the last 18 months in the pandemic. But first of all, I'd like to bring your attention to this quote, which I was reading recently from the International Journal of Inclusive Education. So it looks at refugees. So the interest in the integration of refugees has grown with the increase of asylum seekers dispersed across the UK. The ability to communicate effectively in English is seen as the key priority in facilitating integration, while a lack of English language is seen as one of the major barriers to refugee employment. Okay, so to start with, I'd like to go through what I have been doing over the last 18 months, so where I've been supporting ESOL students, which has been at the local college in Bedford. So prior to the pandemic, we had a meeting at our local FE college and we were going to start a mentoring and tutoring project with their ESOL students. And obviously then the pandemic struck and we've actually been very successful in supporting a really good programme. So from June 2020 up to June 2021, we have been supporting ESOL students that are level 1 and level 2 entry to the college on a Tuesday and Friday mornings. And this has taken place online. Now this has become very successful and it's now become part of their enrichment module on their course. So we've actually embedded our work, what we do, into their module, which has made it very successful in terms of the tutors being there and the students obviously taking part. Now, these students, so they had mentors from the University of Bedfordshire, are 2 postgraduate students, and they are from our Applied Linguistics programme, TESOL. And these mentors also supported a summer EL programme, which was actually referred by the Luton virtual school that took place over the summer as well. So we've been involved in many different programmes as well. So the students that actually took part in this are student mentors who are trained in mentoring, and they actually have a DBS check to use their subject knowledge and experiences in order to help their work that they do in terms of their delivery of the ESOL work. Learners have gone through the care system. So many are young refugees. They might only be living in this country for a few months and can also be living in supportive accommodation. Now, the mentors from the university know how positivity and motivation ultimately affects outcomes. They help young people to develop their communication skills to better express themselves and to gain confidence. And we found within this programme, learner-centeredness is key. So mentors have been there to enable to help students to identify personal strengths and goals. So for example, on these projects, they've looked at entry to colleges. So they might decide they want to do a full-time course at college. Eventually they're looking also going on to university and then also apprenticeship. So it's really worked well working with the college on this programme. So currently, so that was last year, obviously the summer, I have just recruited 3 undergraduate final year TEFL students who are going to go back into Bedford College again after October half term on a Tuesday. And we're actually doing it differently this year. Is actually they're going to be volunteers, and it's actually going towards their course, because last time we did it, they were actually paid student associates, we call them. So maybe similar to what you will have at your university, such as a paid student ambassador, but they're actually going to be doing this voluntary. And the programme is due to be expanded to other local FE colleges within the area where ESOL is taught. And also, for part of this, we're going to get involved with the college again, is actually the university already offers free English language lessons to adults. And so we want to work more closely with the local community, with adult learners, so they can actually take part in this. Then from February 2022, we are going to be running a 6-week programme. So this is with the Luton Virtual School and Luton Youth Advice Service, who have referred learners to us. And this will be different this time, as it will be through a blended approach. So 3 sessions online, and then also 3 sessions at the university, so they can really see what they've learned online and obviously put this into practice for themselves. So one of the tutors, I've built a really lovely working relationship called Kamei. She's their ESOL Personal Achievement Officer from Bedford College, and she has really thoroughly enjoyed us working with us, but really been appreciative of what we've done, because obviously during lockdown we were unable to go to the college, and similarly she would also have other external people, maybe businesses, other providers going in to talk to their students about what they can do with their future. So she's given us a lovely quote for today, and she states that the excellent standard of presentations given to our students by the University of Bedfordshire students had led them to a better understanding about the world of work and volunteering in the UK. It also helped their cohort to improve their English language skills, as they have to listen carefully to the presentation, read some literature, and through what they learnt a lot of new words. They've participated vocally, so through a platform like this, and as much as they can using their English. But also, similar to all the learners we've worked probably alongside the last 18 months, this has really helped improve their IT skills, so getting online and learning how to meet the call, using the chat function. But many students have never used the internet before they actually arrived in the UK, so they have learned an awful lot in a short amount of time. It has also given them a boost in confidence and being able to log in and to participate in discussions. Now, part of this, obviously, Uni Connect, we want to do great evaluation. And this was something I wanted to do, and it was a concern, how was I going to do evaluation when obviously participants are still learning English, and it could prove quite difficult doing our traditional pre and post. So working with a researcher as part of Uni Connect from the University of Northampton, we decided to hold a couple of focus groups where we actually spoke to the students over Teams, similar again to what we're doing today. And so I've got some quotes here of what they've actually said. So this is in their own words. So bear in mind, they're still learning English. I think it is very useful when you want to go to uni or you want to work here. They help many different information. For example, how much you have to pay, when do you finish, and how much, for example, they lend you money before you go to uni and stuff like that. So it is really good to know before you go to uni. I think it is good because the talk about what you do when you finish ESOL is very helpful. It is good for me when I talk about future jobs. It makes me encourage more to work hard. And lastly, these sessions make me think a lot about the future. I did not decide what to do, so this is good for me. My English is not very well. I do not think of university too hard for me. I do Google and search, but they talk it easier. So as you can see, we had very, very positive focus group, and it was really lovely to hear their views of how they've been enjoying our sessions. But on another point, we had some successes as well. So our 2 students that have been working with me on this project have actually been offered teaching roles following their English tutoring experience. So our two master students that were delivering these sessions were Valeria and Margaretta. They now have teaching jobs as teaching assistants at Bedford College and also a local school. They also work in partnership with the Aspire Higher team at the university, and this has strengthened our relationship and our ability to develop more exciting initiatives with FE colleges in Bedfordshire. So this also strengthens our work alongside in psychology projects, general things around student finance and sports programs as well, that we can actually get more involved in the work at the FE colleges. But also it continues to support further local education providers, our local council, Bedford Borough Council, and also Luton Borough Council, where we've been working with their education improvement teams and also the virtual school. Student mentors, the new ones working on the project this year, are now putting this work towards their modules on their degree programme as well. So I've got a couple of photos of our previous tutors from last year. So this is Valeria, and she's actually originally from Greece. So she went through the whole programme herself. She'd been in the UK about 5 years, where she'd learned English in Greece, but also in the UK. And she found that joining Bedford College this year as a teaching assistant in early September has been great. The dynamic of the Luton's virtual school, so the one we did in the summer, was very different from our term time one, because their level of English varied and the topics we need to deliver were also different. She feels this is another great opportunity to strengthen their skills, and again, helping students to be more ease when they start college was really nice, and she really hoped they benefited from our sessions. We also did, which is separate to this, we supported a student that was at a local school, and he is now on the ESOL programme as well, and the next student, Margaretta, had actually been supporting him one-to-one during lockdown as well. So she is now a teaching assistant herself, supporting SEN children at a secondary school. And she feels it's so worthwhile taking part in this programme. Seeing your student success is something that will always stay with you in the most positive way. And moreover, personally, it gave her more clarity about what she would like to do in the future. And she definitely feels that this project was a strong foundation for her to start her professional career in education. And the lovely thing is, we're still going to be working with Margaretta, because she's actually based at one of our target schools, part of Uni Connect, and we're actually going to be doing the EAL project with that school as well. So from this programme, we really feel we have gained fantastic relationships with the colleges, and it's just developing further and further. So not only for the students we work with at the FE colleges, working with their tutors, but also working with the local authorities and also the schools, but ultimately our own university students. The experience they are gaining has been wonderful, and for them to see them progress now in their careers working as a teaching assistant has been fantastic. So I've come to the end of my presentation, but for more information on the project, please do contact me. So I'm Emma Semi, and my email address is there. And I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Yes, really useful overview of that project. Thanks for sharing. Just to let everyone know, which I didn't say at the start, apologies, but if you have got any questions for Emma, feel free to put them in the chat now. But otherwise, we'll hand over to Zoe, and then we'll come to all the questions for both speakers at the end. So yes, over to you, Zoe.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. And thank you, Emma. I'll just share my screen just now for you. Fingers crossed I can do so okay. And I do hope you can hear me all right as well.
Yeah, fine, Zoe, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. So I'm joining you today from the University of Lincoln, just to have a chat to you about a project that we're working on entitled Transitioning Students Effectively, a student-led approach to mental health support. Now, it's an Office for Students funded project, part of a National Office for Students Mental Health Challenge competition that we were lucky enough to win funding from, with the aim to support the well-being of students as they transition from school or college into university. The challenges were initially recognised very early on during the work that's undertaken by our student wellbeing team here at the university, when supporting prospective students prior to starting university following their disclosure through UCAS of any diagnosis they may have. During those initial chats, alongside any disclosed diagnosis, other issues were sort of showing for them. So additional concerns are often emerge around new social situations and friendships and anxieties around those, managing and regulating their emotions and knowing when to seek support perhaps. So what we wanted to do was take a citywide approach really and partner up with other local institutions, support teams. So the local NHS, Links Police were involved, Lincolnshire College, the Bishop Grotesque University, and student representatives from those to form a cross-disciplinary team just to develop processes and resources to help students to not only support themselves but each other as well. So the project initially started in July 2019. We've actually had extension to it as well. So it would have been due to finish in December this year, but we've been able to have extension due to the difficulties that everybody's faced due to COVID, of course. And it now runs until March next year. But a range of interventions have been successfully implemented by the project team throughout this time. For us, the project activities generally fall into two really clear categories, and they're those that are led by the team based in student wellbeing. And we also have a project team based within the student life team here, the digital student life. So alongside the project partners, the team do work collaboratively, not only with the University of Lincoln's education liaison team to enable us to reach more broadly and widely some schools and colleges as well within the local area, but also Link Higher, who are part of the UniConnect programme. So we've been able to look at the sort of natural crossover between projects such as this to enable our work to be shared more broadly. And it's introduced our project team as well into more colleges, which initially had proved a little bit challenging. I don't know whether that was due to existing projects already taking place with those institutions. Some felt that they'd already had, you know, that sort of support covered in-house, and they perhaps were a bit reluctant at first, but we've been able to broaden that now, which is super. So transitional wellbeing activities include mainly the face-to-face and virtual presentations as well, because we had to adapt, of course, and virtual events for students, parents and guardians and teachers, collaborative work and dissemination of digital resource packs. So what we put together was any resources that we were delivering with the team out into schools and into colleges. We've made a resource pack that's available for all online, and I've shared a couple of links within this presentation, and hopefully you might have sight of that to be able to look over them if it might be relevant and appropriate as well. We do Fresh Start workshops, Wellbeing Orientation Welcome, which is a residential summer school ahead of students arriving at university, as well as pre-arrival and transitional student support. So throughout the time of the project, we've delivered 3 wellbeing orientation welcomes, or WOW, as we call them, summer schools, supporting 157 transitional students with declared mental health concerns or difficulties. And more recently, this now includes support for care experienced students and those with caring responsibilities. We have a dedicated advisor within our wellbeing team to support these students. And we recognise that actually transition can be a challenge for any student. So it's available to all who may be facing that as a difficulty in advance of attending university. So our Fresh Start workshops support transitional students with information and advice around homesickness and again managing change at various points throughout the year. So when they might arrive first of all as freshers, but also after that Christmas period, because we recognise that actually going away and then coming back again into that environment can be a bit of a spike for them. And we really wanted to change the terminology, the phraseology around how we are calling things. So where something might have been termed a homesickness workshop, we really wanted to reframe that and the language that was used, because we recognised that it perhaps wasn't the best phraseology, and we saw it as a fresh start for the students. We wanted them to see it in that way too. So the transitional outreach sessions are on varying topics, but mainly around mental well-being, ways in which to look after yourself and managing change. Information is also shared on the importance of early disclosure in advance of enrolment at whichever university that the students may go to, and liaising with, of course, specialist teams to discuss, for example, disabled students allowance or specialist one-to-one support that may be appropriate. So it helped us going into these institutions, going into colleges and having that direct conversation with students who might not have had that information until a little later in the process. And it's really important to also say here that actually the content and the resources and materials that we provided were just for students going on to whatever the next stage of their life may be. It wasn't about selling the university in any way, or even, you know, coming onto university. It was about, hey, these are ways you can manage change, managing the changes that may be ahead for you. So it was suitable for all. There's just a couple of links there because we have put together resource packs for parents, for teachers, and for students themselves as well out within schools and colleges. So like I say, I'll share this, and hopefully if it's shared with you all, you'll be able to follow those links if needed. So just a brief overview of our summer school. It's a free 3-day, 2-night stay on campus offered to students in contact with the wellbeing team. Again, like I say, with those concerns around transition and what may lie ahead. And it's a mix of students of varying backgrounds and ages, which really gives those attendees on the summer school a true insight into university life, shared living, and the challenges and differences that may be ahead for them. So information provided during the outreach work as support to consider or see wherever they go. So what we were talking about within the sessions is, hey, there's this type of support available. Perhaps you want to seek that out to wherever you go on to, so that they can have that opportunity to have that support wherever their destination may be. Now, while students who have attended the school report better ability to manage change, and they do attend university higher than the university average. 2020 statistics are a little skewed, of course, because there was a lot of virtual and timetabling, but for 2019 attendees, they had an average attendance rate of 74.54 in the first year against university average of 72.31 and university disability average of 68.62. So we're monitoring that, and we can monitor the outcomes for those students, how they're feeling, keep in touch with them, and see how their progression through university is. So just a couple of bits of data here for you. The transitional outreach sessions are valued by schools and colleges where we've delivered them, and they are positively viewed by many of the student participants. We have produced internal evaluation reports as needed, and for our own resources as well, we're continually evaluating what we do. So we look at, you know, what's the sort of reach of the outreach sessions, how many people we've been able to deliver to, and where else we might be able to get the information out to as well. So insights, particularly for us, and it may be that this is, you know, clear to some, but for us, some of our staff members were seconded from different areas, so from the student wellbeing team, perhaps going out and delivering these sessions into schools and colleges. And we quickly recognised that it required a very different approach. The mix of students within further education settings meant that the content and delivery and language were often changed as appropriate, you know, because we're recognising that they were a little bit more independent, of course, than those students in school. They were quite more open and confident to asking questions of the team, which was fantastic. And feedback from our early sessions shaped future content where needed. So it was shaped into what those students would require. And we would always have conversations with staff within college settings in particular to ask the makeup of the group. They would say perhaps, hey, this amount of these students are looking to go on at university, or they've had previous experience in higher education. So we were always aware of the makeup of those students in them sessions so that we could shape the content accordingly. Students were grateful of the support, which they all have said that they found relevant. They welcomed the emotional fitness support in particular, which was fantastic. So this looked at ways in which to manage thoughts and emotions, ways in which to sort of let students know what was normal to feel, you know, in circumstances of change, what was usual, and what perhaps to sort of look out for. So we talk about the worry cycle and when to perhaps reach out for support if students might be struggling. And feedback was positive. So an example comment from one of the emotional fitness workshops that we delivered out into one of the colleges was that I noticed that I can increase my confidence if wellbeing techniques are reminded. Therefore, after today, I realise how effective I can act when I'm under pressure and stress. So it's them recognising the strengths in themselves, which was fantastic for us to hear back following those sessions. So we also have the digital team as part of the project, and they produce a really diverse range of digital content for the project itself, such as videos, vlogs and articles, a Fresher Take podcast, and the Student Life app itself, which we promote to students as well in advance of coming in. The podcast series Fresher Take has been hosted by students, produced by students. So a lot of what is being produced by the project itself is student-led. It's either based and shaped around focus groups that we've held with students or produced by students themselves. A student co-production is facilitated by the project team, and all content, particularly from the digital side, is co-produced with students. And the team have also delivered co-production workshops, which has been delivered to other universities and institutions just to share best practice and how they might be able to explore that as well. Just a couple of figures here, just bits to let you know that the Student Life app was launched in August 2020. It's been well received. Students have sent details of this app ahead of arrival and enrolment, and the content and resources are available to support their transition. Most recently, we've been undertaking some work with the Lincoln Medical School for their first year students, with focus groups at different flashpoints again during the first semester, to check that content is relevant, relatable and supportive to them in that transition period. So when they're arriving at university, have they used it beforehand? How was the content, applicable to them? And we're realizing that specific content has been created for differing cohorts, because transition, of course, into university is very different for all, dependent on background, previous experience, where students may be coming from. And in particular, the medical school are telling us this year that a large proportion of their cohort are made up of actual graduates already. So it's having that awareness of the differing backgrounds and students within each cohort, and recognizing that it's not just a one size fits all for any content that we're producing. And we're very aware of that when making and producing any articles and videos and podcasts. It comes from a diverse range of students, such as an MA journalism student, Yasmina, recently wrote a lot of pieces and articles. She also works out in mental health crisis support, so a more mature student sharing her experience as well. So we are always very mindful about producing a full range of content from a range of different sources. A couple more bits here as well, and hopefully if you do have access to the PowerPoint, you might be able to link on and have a look at these. But we put together student stories based on experience. Hannah, who came directly from college and talks very honestly about the challenges she faced, and particularly around the diagnosed conditions. And a range of student content creators just ensures that the content is continually evolving and relatable and engaging, of course. Oh, there we go. I've just put a couple of links there to our digital resources, just so you can see what's available, what's been produced, because it's quite nice to see there from our students what they're getting up to and what's been produced as part of the project, but just that we're sharing for all students. And a lot of it is relatable anyway, even if a pupil within school or college isn't going on to be a student. We've found that they found the information useful and helpful, such as the 5 ways to wellbeing, ways in which to look after yourself, manage your thoughts and emotions, etc. A little more about student co-production there, of course, sharing their lived experiences, which has been hugely valuable and supportive for our students. The feedback that we get is they want more of that, students out within schools and colleges. We're using students as creators as much as possible. We have student ambassadors that work at WOW, and they are previous attendees of the summer school. So again, sharing their experiences and offering support. And we have student representatives that go out into schools and colleges with our outreach team to talk about their experiences as well, and to offer support, answer questions when needed. So just a little bit that we've noticed, and again, this might be really obvious to some, so forgive me, but for us coming into this, from our experience as wellbeing and digital student life, these are what we're really noticing. Colleges are very much more mixed. They want to see content about academic changes that might be happening to courses that they're going to be joining. It was less about independence for them, more questions about grants and funding as appropriate they may need. They had a lot greater confidence, and we had a lot more questions asked of us within sessions out within colleges, which was brilliant, that they had the ability to recognise what help they might need and where might they find that. And we always directed them to resources and appropriate staff within their setting. We felt that we could deliver some harder hitting topics, so more about those concerns and difficulties that students may have had around very complex mental health difficulties were more appropriate for that setting than perhaps the earlier years at school. And they liked the sort of workshop style, which worked more. Of course, it was more assembly style still at school. We're talking in front of 150 or so students, which wasn't always appropriate. The workshop style was fantastic that we've been able to do out in colleges, and that really was beneficial. And it was a lot more about time management as well, and things like that. How can that help with the academic changes that lay ahead for them? So future plans, it's all about, for us, project legacy and how can the resources and content we've produced be sustained and continue. So we work with our education liaison team to ensure the sustainability of our project work and resources, again through their existing contacts, but also their continued engagement and the outreach work that they're undertaking. Resources and links are available for all to use how they wish, and will live on and carry on that project website so that folks can use them, because we produce any presentations in a format that can just be, it's recorded and they can just play it, or teachers and academics in those institutions can actually use them themselves and work through them. We produce workshop materials as well. So whilst access to colleges had been initially challenging, work is now continuing with our partners and stakeholders, which gives us more options for broader delivery of sessions, which is fantastic, right up until the end of the project itself. Resources shared with our partners and stakeholders, again, such as Link Hire, they will continue to be provided to a wider reach. They will continue to host the resources on their Future Focus website, and their officers will continue to use them out within the work that they do, which is just really wonderful for us to have that support. So we understand that supporting students transition is a huge area, and whilst this project is short term, sadly, it has the aim to provide mental health and wellbeing support in a student-led format with the resources and content. And hopefully that will last after the project ends. But we do recognise, that more pertinent work could follow, but there are lots of actual projects already undertaking work such as this that we can feed our work that we've done and our resources into, which is really pleasing for us. And some initiatives will remain and continue within the university. So the summer school will continue, of course. Those fresh start sessions, the podcast and student content creators will all continue to support the incoming students from whichever method that might be, wherever they may join us from. So I do hope that was helpful. I am sorry that feels like a real whistle-stop tour. Any queries, please do let me know. You're more than happy to send anything to me, and I will answer anything as much as I can. So thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Zoe. Again, another great presentation there. And just points after the conference is finished, so any of those links you'll be able to access from Zoe's presentation. Once again, just a reminder to put any questions that you've got in the chat. We've got questions up until 12:45. So yeah, we'll sort of take them as they come. I've got one just to start off with, which is a bit of a general one, just to kick us off. But for both of you, what barriers were there or are there to sort of identifying these students, and also for them to engage in outreach, and sort of how did you overcome them through these projects, in either order?
I would say, I guess from my point of view, is obviously in working with students, English isn't their first language. And in terms of barriers, it was interesting. It's actually a learning curve for us and the students I work with, because there'll be words, even such as, say, some of them wanted to learn about, they had children themselves, they wanted to learn about primary school, and we talk about, say, homework, and that whole word homework was even a whole new concept. So actually kind of a barrier thinking of the words that we use in higher education or colleges, they had never even heard of. So we'd almost had to take a step back and start from again, so teaching key vocabulary. And I'd say that's probably a barrier in terms of, it was good though, it was learning curve, but a barrier, I guess, to try and move forward and think about the aims of going on to HE. And then, but the way you overcome it is working really closely with the tutors, and would get feedback from after every single session. And then you could just see the improvement. It was just going up and up, because by then we'd had, great relationship.
Brilliant, thanks, Emma. And yeah, same question for you, Zoe.
I think for us, initially, we were, for things like the summer school, of course, we were offering that out to the students that were approaching our team already, so who had a disclosure through their UCAS, so they were having support through the wellbeing team. But we very quickly recognised actually we could offer that out more widely. There was no sort of restriction. If we had the places, let's get people in who were, experiencing any worries or concerns. So it didn't really matter in that respect. So that's where, when we were out within schools and colleges, we were able to offer out those resources anyway. And of course, the fact that we were going out and doing those outreach sessions perhaps presented some people to us, and I'm thinking about coming to Lincoln, I might need a bit of support with, I've got dyslexia, what would you recommend? And those conversations would start to happen, which they might not have happened until a lot further down the line for that student. So that was just really nice to be able to get in front of them, and talk about those different areas of support available, and sort of bring everything forward a bit earlier for them.
Yeah, brilliant. That's another question's coming to my head from that, but I'll take one from the chat before I just take over the whole quick Q&A section. As this is a question for Zoe in particular. Did you find any difficulties finding and engaging your audience for digital resources in particular, such as podcasts? And did you look into ways of integrating online resources with live delivery, such as summer schools?
So I think there's always difficulties with engaging students with any element sometimes. You know, we already had the Student Life had a big social media presence. We had a lot of students already, you know, signed on to that. But of course, those incoming new students are the ones that we want to have this content to. So, you know, the team are always at Freshers Fair, they're always out at even virtual or open day events, just saying, hey, have you tried this? Here's this app, what might you think? So it's continual, David. It's just one of those things that we're always trying to get that message out without, you know, overburdening folks who might know or already be engaging with the resources. It's just trying to keep that going, and that's something that we would always find. But those who do engage with it, it's really positive and it's really good. So they're always tuning into those podcasts. We have the regulars in particular for things like that. Integrating them, yes, we did. So the WOW students, we allowed them to have early access to the Digital Student Life app. So those elements we did want them to have access to, because that was going to help them so much with their transition then into university. And one of the sessions that we delivered through the sort of 3-day program was podcasts as well. So we had the digital team. It was like, did you want to make your own podcast? Whatever you want to do it on, whatever theme and content. So it was introducing these little bits at that as part of, you know, the wellbeing orientation welcome. So they had access to that and they were aware of the team and then the resources, and it kind of naturally, you know, progressed from there, which was great.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think one of the difficulties of this whole period has been when online has been the only option, digital has been the only option, but that sort of blended approach is a good way to sort of, I don't know, re-emerge, not necessarily post-COVID, but where we're at now. Yeah.
Sorry, Steph, I was just about to say, I think if time would have allowed us, we would have wanted to sort of just offer WOW out to everybody, because obviously we were so delighted to be able to have it face to face for those students who hadn't been able to even come on campus. That was so huge for them, you know, to be able to come on campus. But what we, you know, in an ideal world, what we'd love to do is then beamed out sessions as well, so that those could be seen by those out. So those are all future plans. Is there any element that we can do of that, you know, because we have sample lecture sessions for students who may not have been in that sort of environment or experienced a lecture before? Could we beam that out so that those virtually can sort of do a virtual WOW, but elements of it as well? So those are all thoughts for the future, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, it leads me on, if I come to you, Emma, just like with digital outreach particularly in mind, was there any digital poverty aspect that particularly adversely affected these sort of students?
There was, and we were trying to look in ways we could possibly support the college in terms of, it's basically some wouldn't have a laptop, obviously some wouldn't have a tablet, and then some were just using it on their phone. So that could be quite difficult. So the first time, yeah, with the college, we did find that more difficult, and we didn't know if there was a way around with Uni Connect you could fund, but there wasn't at the time. But the second time when we did with Luton Virtual School, because a lot of those students were actually living in supportive housing, and we were fortunate they were using, say, the carers, the support workers on their own laptops in the sessions as well. And just not apart from digital poverty, it was often we'd have questions, do you have a translator? Because you'd have several different languages, and unfortunately we didn't for certain languages. It's just not how the program was running. So definitely there was challenges, and I think going forward in an ideal world, yeah, it'd be great to have more money you could actually obviously fund, say, for every student to have a tablet. So that definitely did have an impact on it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure it did. Just a reminder, we've got a couple more minutes now for any other questions that are going to come into the chat. But that question that just came to mind earlier, Zoe, obviously a lot of students don't feel comfortable to declare mental health conditions or any conditions as part of their UCAS form. So sort of what is the number that you look at coming to those summer schools, roughly how many? And as outreach practitioners, how can we encourage students to make those declarations on their UCAS forms?
Yes, it's really hard, isn't it? I mean, if we have on the summer school this year, we had 80 places. We would look to obviously try and expand that if we could. But because a lot of sort of the ethos of the summer school itself is around those students who may have an anxiety about coming into campus. The nature of it, you know, large crowds, etc., we still wanted to have a bit of a personal feel. So we just sort of quietly talk about when out in those sessions about, hey, did you know that XYZ might be available? It's just about just dropping those little bits in and really having that encouragement. And it is about, you know, wherever you may choose to go on, there will be a support mechanism there. So just always have sight of that. You know, what is your support mechanism? What's your go-to? Remember, there's going to be something where you go. But it is, I agree with you, it's really hard. You know, we haven't got any specifics. I think for us, coming from the wellbeing team that were able to go out there, we had a little more experience of just like, you know, spotting bits and pieces and perhaps just quietly sort of having conversations, which we did. And it offered up, you know, people saying, oh, I've been worried about this. And that was really nice to be able to have the capacity to do that. But it is really challenging, isn't it? And I do understand what you're saying, that there are those that still, you know, don't feel able to, but all we can do is just get as much information to them as possible and hope that they read it and recognise, actually, I'm going to hugely benefit from this if I do, you know, disclose and talk to someone.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's all we can do, really, isn't it? Great. Well, thank you both so much. And I think both of your emails were at the end of the presentation. So if anyone's got any questions, further questions after today, or that you think of later, then obviously I'm sure you're happy for them to reach out and get in contact. Yeah, brilliant. So thank you so much, Emma and Zoe, for coming along today and giving that insight into how to support FE students with additional needs. I'm very pleased to announce that it is lunchtime now. So yes, you've got, I think it's an hour break, coming back at 1:45 for our Keynote and Adult Learner panel. And the Zoom link for that last session will be in the conference booklet. But thank you everyone for coming along, and thank you again to both of our speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.